Colonel Potter, sir, my last wish is to be buried in my mother's wedding gown.
I've seen these Dodgers for 40 years, all the tricks.
Before she passed away, Loretta Swit finally confirmed what fans had only speculated for decades, that the real reasons the beloved cast of MASH walked away didn't just include contracts or careers. There were ego, frustrations, heartache, and creative fights bubbling underneath the star of one of TV's most adored series. If you thought you knew the story of MASH, think again. From shocking exits to unheard-of rivalries, Loretta broke her silence after almost 50 years. Stay with us, because what she said will completely change what you thought you knew about the show that defined a generation. MASH, which aired on CBS from September 17, 1972 to February 28, 1983, changed what television could be. Based on Richard Hooker's novel and the 1970 film, the series was set during the Korean War in a mobile army surgical hospital in Woo-jong-bu, South Korea. It took the raw trauma of war and added sharp humor, heart, and humanity from the start. It unmistakable taking that MASH was certainly not a generic sitcom, and it was deeply human. 1 minute could end with laughter, or the next, fighting back tears, but above all else, the cast was unforgettable. Alan Alda playing Hawkeye Pierce, Wayne Rogers as Trapper John, Loretta Swit as Margaret Houlihan, Larry Linville as Frank Burns, Gary Berghoff as Radar O'Reilly, and Mabelan Stevenson as Colonel Henry Blake. Even later cast additions, such as Harry Morgan as Colonel Potter and Mike Farrell as B.J. Hunnett, kept the series alive into its legendary later years. However, while audience members were fine with cast changes, off-camera, it was anything but calm as the creative direction of the show changed. So did the relationships the actors shared. The biggest change was when Alan Alda began asserting his role as a writer, director, and eventually producer. There were, of course, still positives to have Alda in a more dominant role, but he created rifts among the other cast members. For example, Wayne Rogers left after season 3. He had signed on to the series because he believed Trapper John would be an equal lead with Hawkeye, but as time passed, it was obvious Alda was at the center of the show, and feeling as though he was being overshadowed, Rogers walked out, although he left having a great relationship with Mabelan Stevenson, who played Colonel Blake, who also left MASH around that time. He was loved by fans, but the role was too restrictive. He once said, "I thought America loved Mabelan Stevenson, but truthfully, they loved Henry Blake." His departure stunned fans. The death of his character off-screen, with a plane crash, remains one of the most shocking moments in television history. Larry Linville, who made Frank Burns uptight and often the butt of the joke, willingly departed from MASH after seasons 5. While he made Burns one of the best antagonists ever on television, Linville thought the character became superficial, too exaggerated, and without growth. "I had done everything I could with that character," he said, knowing he did not want to be remembered as a one-note, slimy villain without depth or nuance. Similarly, Gary Berghoff, the beloved actor of Radar O'Reilly, finally snaps. By season 8, Berghoff is in his 40s, still playing a naive teenage character. The emotional and physical energy of the position began to drain him with personal tribulations, increased tension while working with Bill. Rumor is, it was a violent confrontation with Wayne Rogers. Berghoff sensed it was finally time to part from the character actor, but it happened effortlessly, and the goodbye episode showcased both the character and the performer who brought Radar to life. In the pandemic shifts that took place, Loretta Swit stayed, but her fidelity to Margaret was not unintentional. From day one, she fought to show Margaret Houlihan as more than a cliché. And because of her work, Hot Lips developed into Margaret, who portrayed a cool mixture of power, vulnerability, and depth. She made sure to work with the writers to develop Margaret into someone primarily, not just Hot Lips. She shared lead roles in episodes like Hot Lips and empty arms and the nurses, and Swit had centered stage in both and lived up to her responsibilities. Margaret also received 10 Emmy nominations, winning 2, and also was nominated for just as many Golden Globes and People's Choice Awards. Swit also played the role of peacekeeper when others were arguing on set over timeshares and creative control. She was the glue when things got tense. She was the emotional keeper of the show. She and Alan Alda formed one of the strongest emotional bonds on the show. The characters often argued and fought, then came to respect for each other. And their bond didn't just run deep for years. For decades, there was speculation between them which neither confirmed nor denied. When Swit died on May 30th, 2025, Alda finally broke his silence with a poignant post on social media. Alda just wrote, "She created Margaret. She took a caricature and made it human. We commemorated the day they stopped calling her Hot Lips and called her Margaret," and ended with a quiet tribute to their bond, which he suggested had been much deeper and reserved for their private lives for almost half a century. Outside of the show Mass, Loretta Swit lived a life of passion, principle, and management of quiet strength. While millions of people, and many loved ones, would remember her as Major Margaret Hot Lips Houlihan, her legacy lived outside of the television screen. Swit married actor Dennis Houlihan in 1983, who was only known for making a guest appearance on MASH as a Swedish diplomat. However, this marriage ended and finalized. Swit never remarried. She found fulfillment in a life of independence, creativity, and advocacy. A committed animal rights activist, Swit became a vegetarian early in her life and embraced veganism in 1981. Long before it was on the radar of the masses, she associated with organizations like PETA and promoted animal welfare, taking her advocacy seriously, and, wherever possible, she used her fame and notoriety as an animal advocate, and not for her own vanity, but to amplify the voices of the voiceless. Animals often suffer in silence. In addition to her advocacy, she was also truly an artist at heart. In 1986, Swit published a needlepoint scrapbook, a beautiful book containing a collection of her needlework patterns along with her reflections. It was such a peaceful means of expression for her, and her love for detail and introspection was demonstrated in her pages. Then she published Sweetheart, a book that featured her watercolor paintings combined with stories from her animal advocacy work. Unlike many of her colleagues, Swit slipped from Hollywood without much fanfare after her last TV appearance in 2008. She wasn't looking for attention from the press or social media. She chose solitude, creativity, and causefulness over glitz and glamour, and when she died in 2025 at the age of 87, tributes came in from those who mattered most: her co-stars, her fans, and the millions inspired by her. For many, she was mass. Her ability to redefine what it means to be a strong woman on television, with the role of Margaret Houlihan. Through both her performance and her life, Loretta Swit has shown us that legacy is not created under the bright lights. It is forged through purpose, principle, and heart. And if you liked this look into MSH and Loretta's life, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Her legacy is not actionable in the lines she provided. It is in the change she made, the people she touched, and the power she brought to every scene. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.